Okay, I've been a speaker here a few times, and I'm always very honored and excited to be here. Kind of the cool thing about today's event is that it's a smaller, I don't know how many students we have on session, how many participants, but hopefully it'll allow you all to ask the questions that you get. I do have a PowerPoint presentation because it's ingrained in my brain to do that, and I'm a visual learner. So I'm going to share my screen, and let's see if we do this right. I'm still working as a family medicine physician here in Mission Hills at Kaiser, but I'm also on faculty at the School of Medicine. So I'm currently an instructor. So hopefully over the years, I will eventually become a professor. So that takes a little time and effort, but that's my current goal. And that's why you see the little emblem of the School of Medicine, because that's part of what I do. And just so you know, what I do is it's a new medical school. And anytime you do something new, there's always a lot of challenges. But part of the curriculum I do is something that's very unique that unfortunately isn't taught in all medical schools in a way. So the students are rotating through certain clinics, they're doing experiences, they're learning about something called social determinants of health, which essentially is how poverty, food insecurity, racism, environmental toxins, and all these things affect health versus just what we blame on the patient all the time, right? Hi, comes muchas tortillas and you need to stop drinking your Coke and you need to start doing your party. Yeah, that's one part of health, but the other part of health is the environment and where we grow up. So that's kind of something that we're doing and it's fun. So if you have questions about the way along the way, let me know. Okay. All right, so I'm going to focus on Latinas in medicine. It's the goal of the conference. So I get this is one of the few moments that I really get to just kind of focus on doing that work, and that's why it's inspiring. I wanted to really remind you all about this. Tú eres poderosa. La señora Dolores Huerta said that. And I wanted to remind you, and I found this image on like Univision's, like I was looking for quotes and I'm going to give them credit because, you know, that's the right thing to do. But I added the quotes, tú eres poderosa, you are powerful. And if there's anything that you can take away from me today or anybody else today is remembering those quotes, like put it somewhere, post it, remind yourself every day, put it on your phone. Because when you remember your power and able to embrace that, you're able to move forward and, you know, face the barriers that you are challenged to. Now, this is the other thing that's really important to me. I feel that my heritage and my background is my superpower. I grew up in a Mexican household, and in my family, my parents immigrated in the 60s or 70s. So that sounds like a long time ago because I'm already older. and but being Latina is something that's really important to me. It's part of who I am. I can't dissect that away from me being a doctor and a student, and I'm proud of it. And I've always been very confident in that. And you'll find that sometimes when you have that confidence, people are threatened as they shouldn't be. I'm actually a pretty nice, fun person. But just because I'm confident in whom I am and my background and my heritage, people get scared and they shouldn't be. But this quote by one of our Supreme Court justices really calls to me. The Latina in me is an ember that blazes forever. Sometimes the ember has to be a little quieter, but sometimes it's a raging fire. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. So a little bit about me and who inspires me and what inspired me to go into medicine. So my parents, as I mentioned before, are immigrants. I have 4 older brothers, and I grew up in a very kind of macho household. My dad, may he rest in peace, ya que descanse en paz. He passed away 10 years ago, but he was sick for a long time. But before that, you know, a very hardworking man, very dedicated to his family, but you know, it's the time he grew up in. He was a product, so un poco machista, and they've grown. My brothers and who I love dearly, have a lot of those ingrained in them. When I was 7, my dad actually fell ill, and he ended up with brain damage. He was pretty young now. He was like 45. I'm 43. So when I think about that, it freaks me out a little because I realized that he still had his whole life ahead of him. He ended up having brain damage that lasted he got sick in 85. He passed away in 2009. So I kind of grew up in that situation, and that what really inspired me because I was thrust from being the spoiled child princess, you know, to a very strong loving family. And then when he became ill, like it threw my world upside down. And then I also learned along the way, my mom is a very strong woman. She would say all the time, te tienes que amarrar los pantalones, you know, like you have to tighten up your belt and move forward. You can't let life trip you and let those pants fall down. And you know, another thing she would say is que ella tiene los ovarios bien puestos, you know, like, and I, you know, she inspires me. She is truly one of my heroes because she was able to not let us fall apart and held us together. Even now, you know, my mom's 77 and we're all very strong personalities, but she's able to rein us in and calm us down. I did it, you know, on this computer, I didn't have pictures, but I have a picture of my dad since I'm at home, you know, there's random pictures. And I was like, oh, let me show you. Let me see. Oh, the screen, you can't see it. So this is my dad and he's on a caballo. Turn it. I'm going to have to take off my screen later if we have time. But it's his awesome picture and he's riding a horse and stuff. And it was right before he became ill in 1985. So that really inspired me. Then I'd go into the doctors all the time because of my dad. So one, I wanted to know as a 7-year-old, I was a really good student. I wanted to know, how did he get sick? The people's explanations weren't enough for me. So I kept researching. And back then we didn't have internet. So like I would find books and it would be biology books or textbooks. So I would learn about anatomy because I wanted to learn what happened to him. And I wanted to learn what could have been, if it could have been prevented. At the end of the day, I think what happened to my father, he had something called neurocysticercosis. I don't think it could have been prevented. Had they caught it, they might have been able to treat it at that time, but it was literally bad luck that led to him in that situation. And I know that the doctors who did brain surgery on him back in the day did the best they could to try to save him. And he was present, but the brain damage really kind of changed our lives. So it really helped me though experience that there's sometimes things you can control, and then sometimes there's things you can't. Even all the most modern science and technology can't always save the ones we love. And it was something that I learned really early on that I think made me mature. But it took me a while, obviously, to grasp that. I think that knowledge has really helped me be a physician when I'm talking to patients, because, you know, in medicine, you're actually dealing with people's lives. So it can be really challenging. Okay. And then I found that little picture of my parents crossed the border so I could cross the stage. And there is that one saying that I'm at my ancestors', you know, wildest imagination. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but sometimes that's how I feel. I feel like I am the legacy of my family and I'm proud of it. And I've always worked hard to make them proud. At the same time, I've also kind of broken some barriers. Like sometimes my mom's like, "Ve, sírvale a tu hermano." And I'm like, I'm the one that's working all week tired. Let him serve me. And there's those, you know, growing up, my mom had like, "Oh, go make his bed, go do this." And even as a child, I remember I was like, why do I have to do it just because I'm a girl? Anyways, it's the little feminist in me. And sometimes I've done things a little different than they would have imagined, but it's worked out and that's okay. So in general, I'm going to just talk about some reasons that people become doctors. Okay. So most of the time people just want to help others. They want to do good in the community, and careers in medicine as a doctor or any other field in healthcare really gives you that opportunity. Usually people like science, anatomy. You know, if you don't like blood, then, you know, medicine might not be the place for you. If you get grossed out by things, you know, you might want to think of other careers. People want to make a difference, you know. Um, Sometimes like my experience really shaped me to be a doctor. Sometimes it's the opposite. I think I've met a lot of people who had phenomenal doctors and saw like their family member be saved. So then that's why they want to be medicine, because they've seen the opposite. So I saw a little bit of both. And of course they want to be successful. And you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, if you've seen like family struggle and if you want to have your house and your things, then it's important to work towards that goal, to do that. And knowing that working there, you can get that. And truthfully, healthcare is a career that we know is essential, you know, after this pandemic. So, and when you pick a career that's essential, there's always going to be a place for you in any round possible. So I really love that flexibility that medicine has. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a few facts, and let me look at my time. 16 minutes. I'm going to try to talk for 10 minutes. I know I talked fast already, so I'll go through some of the ones that are doing it, and let me know if there's any questions. All right, Edith? So this is some data from 2018, and this is a California population by race. And as you can see, the blue is Latinx, and we are a big chunk of that. I want to say we're about 40% now. Um, what's troublesome, if you look at, compare to that turquoise that we have there to the green. These are all in 2018, the percentage of Latinx doctors are in the green. So it's only 6%. So if you can see, that's a huge variation. You have 40%, California population, only 6% are Latinos. What's that about? That's a lot more, the answer to that question is a lot bigger, but the bottom line is you have to work hard. You have to get involved in organizations such as these. You need to find mentors to break those numbers. Those numbers should be different. I really feel it's about changing the way school systems are created and the opportunities and mentorship. But the school system in itself has to radically change. So we need you. And don't think you're not capable. That just means opportunities were not given, not that people were not capable. There's a difference there. Now, this is important. I'm probably a little cough in my coffee. Give me a second. So this is percentage of physicians by sex or gender, probably a better language for this. 64% are male and 35.8% are female. But the reason there is that difference is because this includes all the male physicians from the 60s and 70s when they were not allowing women to be in med school. If you look at the numbers now, so current medical students who are going to be doctors in a few years, it's pretty 50-50. Actually, I think this year it was about 51% female and then 49% male. So as time goes on, maybe in 10 years when you all apply to med school, this number will, in the average in general, look different because a lot of those males in that green section are now starting to retire. Okay, so how do I become a doctor? I want you to get facts. I want you to come over here with probably a plan or, at least an idea. When I started, I didn't learn this until my first year in college. So you're already a few years ahead of me, okay? So first you go to high school. You got to get your degree. Okay, then you have to get a bachelor's degree and then you go to med school. So that's the straight line. But I want to tell you that not everybody does that full straight line. Some people take a little more time. Some people travel the world. Some people have other careers completely. One of my best friend, who's an amazing obstetrician, she was actually a nurse in the emergency room for like 8 years when she decided she wanted to be the one calling the shots and telling, doing the orders and wanted that responsibility. So she went back to med school and she's running stuff, wherever she works. She's an amazing individual. Okay, so for high school, do you still need the SATs? Edith, do you know the answer to that? Is that still something students need in their education?
I think
this is Rosemary.
Yes.
We kind of cut the SATs because of the pandemic.
Okay.
But I don't think so. I don't think they're going to be using them, but we don't know. It could change.
Okay. So the SATs was that big test that you needed to get to college back in the day. Things change all the time. I need to get updated already. And then from college, before you go to med school, you need to take an MCAT. And that MCAT, that test stops a lot of students, but it shouldn't, okay? It's just, but it does. Okay, so after med school, you go to residency. And there's all different residencies. This is where you pick your specialty. So if you want to be a pediatrician, I'm family medicine, internal medicine, obstetrician, the list goes on and on. Surgeon, orthopedics, psychiatry, radiology, neurology. The reality is we need you in all of these fields. So don't ever feel like you have to be a family medicine doctor. That's something that I would hear a lot back in the, when I was in med school, is that they would say like, oh, you're Latina, you have to be family medicine. And I would be like, no, I'm going to be family medicine because I want to, because that's what I am. That's my skill. But I had several friends who were emergency room doctors and OBGYNs, a vascular surgeon. So the vascular surgeon like fix arteries and veins and aneurysms. She actually puts the fistulas for patients who have dialysis. And she does that. And one of my other good friends, an anesthesiologist. She's like, really specialized anesthesiologist. She does anesthesia for pediatric patients, and she specializes even more and does transplant, cardiac transplant. So you can do whatever you set your mind to, okay? Now I showed you that one path that was all the straight line. This is more of a curvy line, and it can go in a million directions. Do you see my mouse as I'm going? But the reality is you can decide to go to community college first. You can get your bachelor's. You can have a career. You can have a family anywhere along this, before, during, after. You can get a master's. You can decide to go to medical school later and then still be a doctor. So don't be limited. And sometimes life throws things at us and we're not ready when we're 20 to career that path, but who says you won't be ready at 28? If that little ember and passion is inside, don't ignore it, continue to follow that career. Okay, so what were my academic challenges? I'm a doctor, I must have done everything perfect, and but I didn't. I struggled a lot. First, I didn't know about medicine in the path until my end of my first year in college, but I joined a pre-med group, and they were all Latinos. We had so much fun. We supported each other at UCLA. We did a lot of volunteer work. So one of my problems is that I sometimes volunteered too much. So then it was really hard to stay on top of the grade. So finding that balance between feeding my soul and my spirit, doing that work, but really hitting the books and making sure my academics were done. So that's a fine balance that you need to figure out. There are some people who are able to do both all the time together, and I cannot. I really, even now as a mom and as a family, I really limit what I'm able to do. I really limit the amount of leadership opportunities that I take, because I still have little ones at home, and and I need to be present for them. But I do sometimes think like, when they're in high school, I'm gonna have a lot more time. So I do kind of keep one toe in the water, so I could always come back and have experience. And then how do I pay for med school? Higher education is expensive. There are a lot of scholarships. Back, when I went to UCLA, I commuted from the Valley to UCLA. The traffic wasn't as bad, so that was really something I could do. There was times I left to go to school at 5 a.m. if I had an 8 a.m. class, and I would go and park there, and then I would take a nap, and then till I get to my 8 a.m. class, and I would leave that early just to avoid traffic. Sometimes I would go and study. They did have 24-hour libraries on campus, but sometimes it was just scary to get there in the dark. So I would just stay in my car safely when my car's locked and be safe. And then other days I wouldn't be coming home till midnight because I was on campus studying. It was really hard to study at home. And then I went off to med school. Okay, I want to say this: medicine is a team sport. I'm kind of focusing on the med school part. I think it's important for people to be involved. I feel like it's important for people to be doctors too. I think a lot of careers are choosing RNs, and there's also a lot of people becoming nurse practitioners and physician assistant, and that's great. But I also think about the safety of the community, and the amount of hours of training that a doctor undergoes to kind of get that level is a lot. But I wouldn't have it any other way, because even as a doctor now, there's always gaps in my knowledge, but it's always great to work with other doctors who have that understanding. So to me, I think it's really important to push you all to follow a career and to get this training that's intense. The way I said, I knew I wanted to work in Latino communities. Everywhere I've chosen to work, there was that focus. And I want to make sure that I'm providing the best healthcare for my patients and able to communicate it. Now, that being said, there's tons of roles that you can do in healthcare and medicine. So if there's one that calls to you, then go for it, because we need you. So I know there's another nursing workshop, which is amazing, because I don't know what it takes to become an RN and nursing. So I'm glad that they're sharing that in case you're interested. But there's a medical assistant program, there's LVN and RNs, and those are kind of RN is the highest level. You can even get a doctorate in an RN. There's people who choose to become physicians assistants and nurse practitioners. I love it when I meet patients or other people who are therapists, because we need mental health is such an important thing in the community, depression and anxiety. So if you think you're like a psychologist or a therapist, then go for it, because our people need you, and they need to have therapists that understand what they're going through. So if you think physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, working with children with special needs, working adults with special needs, social workers, psychologists, and then technology. Sometimes we're not always cut out to go to the high degree, but that doesn't mean you cannot be an amazing like technology field. So you would go to a trade school and you would learn how to be a surgery tech. So perhaps you're not the one doing the surgery because life didn't lead you in a direction, but you're the surgeon's right hand person. You know, if they want a scalpel, you know what they need before they do. And that's amazing to me. I've been in operating rooms as a med student. And sometimes I felt I was in the way of the surgery techs and the other techs in the thing, you know, as a medical student, because they are so talented and knowledgeable about what they do. And they're in those surgeries, every single surgery, there's surgical techs, there's radiology, there's phlebotomists, there's labs. So medicine is a team sport and there's a place for you. I wanted to show this picture because, you know, pandemic, we're all in masks. And I think this was around the holidays and we all dressed up as superheroes. And it was a lot of fun. And this is my team where I work at with here in Mission Hills. And the beauty of it is like, you see some diversity, right? A lot of women. And you see, you can't tell the difference between who our doctors are, who our RNs are, who our administrators are. We're all in there together. And I think, and I can't do my job right without their support. So I wanted just to highlight that fun picture. Okay, so things that I know I have 5 minutes, so I'll go through the rest quick. So if you're in high school, I'm hoping this has inspired you a little bit, you know, but these are things you should focus on: getting good grades. Okay. You need good study habits. You need to figure out how you learn. And I know how I learned, but it took a lot of learning, you know, how to do that. Meeting mentors to help guide you. And sometimes a mentor is not somebody you might necessarily have a personal relationship with. I remember the first time I saw a Latina physician was at this Adelante Mujer Latina conference back in 1996 when I was graduating high school. And she was presenting a workshop and she was pregnant and she's like, "You guys can do it." And I was like, "Yes, I can do it." And ever since then, to me, I was like, that's a little seed that was planted in me. And here I am, 43 years old. And I still remember that moment. And I consider, I don't even know who she is, but in my head, she's still one of my little like spiritual mentors guiding the way because she paved that path. Volunteer work always inspires me. And ultimately, why? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to work so hard? And only you can answer that question. Obviously, do your research. There's lots of really great things out there. These are some organizations where you can find some research, some mentors. MeMentor.org is one of the organizations I helped found, and it is online. It's a virtual platform. There's over 10,000 people like you who want to be in medicine. And then lastly, dream big, you know, write your dreams down. It's not enough to have a computer. I would write them out and made them in pretty paper and printed them. And I put them all over my wall. And every morning I would look at my quotes. Okay, I'm corny. And then I also had a path. So like once I figured out how to get there, I printed out. So I was like third year of college, fourth year. And then as I finish each path, like I would remove it. And then I was finally in med school. I still have those papers in a box the other day. And it was really cool to see how far I've gone. Plan out your steps, work hard, give back, ask questions, do stuff like this, have fun, find your passion. And sometimes it's not always sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes it's challenging. Not everybody wants you to succeed in this path. Sometimes it's people in your family, it's your neighbors, it's your classmates. Sometimes it's counselors or teachers, you know, that you'll encounter barriers over every step of the way. But if you remember que tú eres poderosa, that you are powerful, just ignore those and keep working forward. Lastly, I just want you to remember that no one succeeds alone. This is another quote by Sonia Sotomayor, Justice. Remember, no one succeeds alone. Never walk alone in your future path. And I couldn't find the picture, but I had a really awesome picture with my classmates and, you know, over 20 years, and they're still my friends. I really met my true friends in college, my people, you know, the people who got me, and they are still my friends. Some of them are my comadres. We've baptized each other's kids, dinner. It's been hard to be away from them. We've traveled. And then I have my comadres that I met in med school. So, and you know, it's cool to have that support along the way. Anyways, I know I talked a lot. That was a little bit of time. But I just kind of want to know if you all have any questions, or maybe if Edith or Rosemary or any of the other mentors have questions, I'm here. I'm going to stop.
I have a question,
Yeah,
Doctor. How do your children feel about you being a doctor and then sometimes being away from home?
yeah.
What is
Um,
their take?
there are moments where they're like, "Mommy, are you working?" I'm like, "Yes." Yes, and I tell them, they enjoy their children of a doctor. They do. They need of nothing. They want of nothing. They are loved. They are cared for. They have good homes. When I am with them, I try to spend my time with them. I push them to work hard in school. Um, and I think to them it's just second nature now. And they don't think about it. So I have two boys. I have a 10-year-old and an almost 8-year-old. And I want them to feel proud, and they are. They're like, my mommy's a doctor, and it does feel good. And more than anything, I want them to. They want something. They need to work hard to get to it. Mommy didn't get here, by sitting back and just watching TV. So I think I'm hoping they'll learn from that. So
Thank you very much. We have 30 seconds right now, and there is a student that said, I love your energy.
Yes,
thank you.
totally agree.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bree. We
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate you and being part. You were one of our recipients of our scholarship.
I was
And
1996.
And I'm gonna look for that doctor that did your the one that put that C on you because I know who she is.